welcome to another episode of Woman Witness TV, The Stories at the Well. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Today, I have a very special topic for you and a very special guest. As we all know, here on this platform, we bring to you voices of women who are out there making a positive impact and making a difference in their lives, in their families, and in the community around them. Today, I have a very special guest that's going to give us a nice, good lean-in conversation where we can really begin to discuss some matters in which that needs to be brought to this well. So today I have a special guest with us. Her name is Dr. Lynnette. Dr. Lynnette, welcome to the well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Lynnette, when you reached out to us, you said that you wanted to talk about student parent mental health and wellness. And I'm so glad that you brought this topic up because I don't believe that it gets discussed enough. So I want to start by just opening up with getting to know who you are and a little bit about your background and your story.
Sure, thank you. The reason why I wanted to discuss this is because being a student parent is a big part of my identity. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a licensed professional clinical counselor. I also have my doctorate in social work, and that sounds all fun and great now, right? That I've completed this journey, but it took me quite a while to get to where I'm at now. Being first generation Mexican American with limited resources, limited support with education, it was a difficult journey to, start my educational journey at a community college, get my associate's degree, right, transfer, and then trying to navigate the systems. And with all that happening, becoming pregnant unexpectedly at 20 years old, right? That's not the vision when you're trying to go to college and break the cycle of poverty. But when you have a goal and hopes, you kind of get through it. A big part of my identity is not only being a student parent, but also being, first generation Mexican American, first person in my family to get a college education, to be able to provide opportunity, not only for the people that are in my community, but for my family.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, you've accomplished so much and you just said a mouthful. And I know I know that a lot of people can relate. Let's start there. Now, you mentioned your educational accomplishments and your current occupation, which I thank you for sharing. I want to ask you, did you always know that this was what you wanted to do? This was your goal plan. This was what you set off to do.
Yeah, actually, from a young age, I wanted to become a psychologist. And the reason why is my mom actually was a receptionist at an outpatient facility working with individuals that were struggling with court mandated services, right? So they were struggling with substance use, domestic violence, right? So they're court mandated. And I
Yeah.
had that early exposure, but I really didn't know what therapy was. All I knew was that, oh, like psychologists help people that are struggling. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go that route to become a psychologist because, again, being first generation student parent, limited income, once I got my bachelor's, I had to decide like, okay, more years of being broke, right? Or 2 year more years of being broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was really about the money. And so I'm like, let me go straight for a master's degree. Eventually later, I'll decide if I have the ability to get the doctorate degree.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to break this down for a lot of people who are listening and being first generation college graduate, first generation Mexican American. Now that puts you in a situation where you feel as if it's unachievable, right? Is that safe to assume, right? So when you were in that situation and you came up, maybe perhaps you didn't see anyone else do it. I want you to talk to some of us who are maybe in that position right now, or even they have children who could be that first person. I want you to talk to some of us, bring us to that moment and help us navigate through that or from there.
So I think naturally, right, our brain is very negative and our brain is going to shut down all of the
Anything. Yeah.
ideas, right? All of
Yep.
our aspirations because our brain wants to protect us against the fear. In those moments, I think what I kept holding on to, and I'll tell everyone to hold on to, is that hope and that fear, right? Because we do need fear to get us to activate, but being able to remember is that the fear will pass eventually, and that hope will, allow you to be able to overcome that fear in the moment. So I think it's a lot of mindset, right? Saying like, I have to make a decision of what type of stress I want in my life, honestly, right? And do I want that ongoing stress, generational stress, or do I want that moment in stress?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's very good. And I don't know why when you said generational stress, that's ringing and it's kind of sitting with me because I do believe that a lot of us repeat what we see. And depending on what we see, that's as far as our hopes, desires, and wishes will go. So I admire you that you sat in a place where you watch your mom work, where she was helping people in cases she wasn't the one actually doing, but she was in it in the and she allowed and you got to see it. Okay, Lynette, I'm sorry. I get so excited about this. You're breaking the norm. You're changing your outcome. You're changing the narrative. Okay, so I want to kind of move a little bit into being that student parent. I believe that things can sometimes happen, right? And they're only meant to throw us off our course, throw us off track. And good, and I say things, I say blessings as well, because it's blessing in disguise. So talk to us, talk to us about your blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I've reflected on that, right? Again, not I love my kids, right? But again, I was not expecting to be a 20-year-old student parent. I was expecting to go live life and be a traditional college student.
Mhm.
But you know what I will say? It was a blessing because now that I wasn't able to go out and have so much fun, right, as a college, right, as a traditional college student,
Yes.
um, right?
Yep.
And I was
Mhm.
home more because
Yep.
obviously being pregnant, you're tired, right? You're
Yes.
working, going to
Yep.
school. It was a blessing because I had more time to actually focus on doing my work,
Mm.
right? It was also a blessing because being young, right? We're not really ones to take care of our health in general, right?
Yeah.
But because I was became a young student parent, I had to go to my doctor's appointments, right? I had to go to my dentist appointments now, right?
Yes.
So that was a blessing. So I think what it allowed me to do was to be able to refocus my energy on the
Yeah.
things I probably needed to focus on the whole time. But you're
Yeah.
young, it doesn't
Yep.
matter.
Yep.
Um, and so that was the blessing. Is really, I was okay. I had more time now. I'm at home.
Yeah.
I could focus on my homework. I'm
Yeah.
at home. I could focus on studying. I have to go to these doctor's appointments, these dentist appointments. It was also a blessing, I think, because it allowed me to think about what a little faster of
Yeah.
what I needed to do to make
Mm.
sure that my kids had more opportunity than I had, and that we're not going to repeat the same cycle, right, of possibly becoming a student parent. And so I think those are some of the blessings, definitely.
I love that you use your own personal experience to become that cycle breaker to set forth a path, a clear path now for your children. And I think so often, and I love the fact that you talk about being a student parent because you're right, there are a lot of student parents out there, or there are a lot of parents who had kids and said, you know what, this is not for me, it's never gonna happen for me. And then we quit on something that we really never even gave a chance. So I love that you talk about this. Now, of course, we talk about your children, but what motivated you to pursue higher education?
Like I mentioned, because I worked in that environment, right? Or and I shouldn't say I worked in that environment. My mom worked in the environment that exposed me to professionals. I saw more opportunity, right? So again, I think our parents do the best they can, and due to their experiences, right? Sometimes they're limited and due to their own fears. Sometimes they self sabotage. But I was able at the time to talk to a lot of the psychologists, the social workers there, and kind of pick their brains, like, what are you doing and why do you do it? Because of that interest of wanting to help people, I was like, okay, I need to get an education, right? So that was one part of it. The other part of it, again, is my parents did the best they could, but because they don't have never received a high school diploma, because they were undocumented for a long time, right? A lot of those challenges, It created financial challenges for myself, for my siblings, and being one of the eldest kids, and I have an older brother, but then it's me. I have 2 younger sisters, and what I wanted from a really young age is to protect them from the financial stress of life because I my brother and I experienced it, right, being the older kids.
Right.
And so what I knew was I have options, right? 3
Yeah.
options really. 1, I
Mm.
get a good job and move up in that career. 2,
Yeah.
I marry rich,
Come
right?
on.
Or right, you marry or 3, you get an education to have options. The
Mm.
main reason why I decided to pursue that education was because I had a passion. I wanted that psychologist title, right? Thought it was awesome, but also was to truly provide that support for my younger sisters to say, like, I got you, I'll protect you. You don't have to worry about these stressors while you go to college. It's going to be a very different experience.
Wow, you give me so many. I have chills right now. I got to sit in a school district meeting. I was a part of a an academy here in my here in Ventura County. You know California, and I was a part of something called Ventura County Leadership Academy, and I got to sit in a meeting with high school students who were first generation. To go to school, to go to college, to they're graduating from high school, going into college, and I heard this young girl and she gave her what I like to say her testimony to a room full of grown people. Okay, that's what I like to say, right? She didn't see her age. We heard her heart and her determination to push past those barriers that was holding her back, and some of the struggles that she witnessed her parents having to go through and having to provide for their family. And I heard it from her heart, and she was able to actually put in a lot of ideas in different ways that we can work within the school system to help better give these children a voice and give them a platform to stand on. So I hear that so loud and clear what you're saying. And I just would love to, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall too. And your young mind asking these professionals about their job. Like, I don't even, how old were you at the moment? Or do you remember?
Yeah, I think I was probably around like 12 or 13.
Easy to be. Like, you're in there like wanting to know, what it's like to be. I mean, I think it's like you said, it's been in you. Okay, so can you share some of the challenges and obstacles that you face throughout your college years besides being a student parent?
I think some of the challenges were not understanding the system in general.
Mm,
So let me tell you, I'm so grateful for our community college system. I think our community college system is amazing and it continues to grow and just really support our students. But I remember just even when I started school, right, not really understanding what it was to be a successful college student. So let me tell you, my mindset was C's get degrees, okay?
yeah,
C's get degrees and
yes,
pass those classes, move forward. But it's because again, I was in this position of I really don't know what it is to get A's and B's because I'm not really sure how to study. So that was a challenge, right? How do I study? How do I manage my time? What
mm,
resources are available? That first year is trying to navigate, right? What resources are available that can actually help me to have this mindset of you can get A's, you can get B's.
yeah,
The other challenge I think was balancing, right? Balancing your role as a student, as a human,
yeah,
but also working. And so
yeah,
those are always things, and also being culturally speaking, right? Being Hispanic, and for most of us, right, as
yeah,
we're really connected to our families, and so there's family parties, there's all these things happening, and we're
yeah,
expected to be there.
yep,
We're expected to help with the kids. So
yep,
navigating some of those, again, the work-life balance is really difficult.
yeah,
I would also say just even, as I started, I had really no idea about financial aid. I mean, I knew I signed up for it, right? You sign up for financial
yeah,
aid, you get your classes paid for, but then you start getting these checks, right? These checks they give you, right? I
yes,
loved it and I
yes,
appreciated it, but but also when you're first gen, sometimes you don't know how to manage that money, right? Because you get
correct,
this money you've never had, and so you're like, you wanna spend it. And so I think there's just so many factors when it
Mhm.
comes to, again, just your individual role as a student trying to
Mm.
navigate this big system of what classes I should take and how,
Right.
what do I do with this financial aid money, and how do I get A's? How do I get B's? How do I
Mm.
advocate for myself when I don't understand something? So
Right.
those are a lot of things that I experienced personally, the first year. And then, like I said, though, once I became a student parent for whatever reason, maybe I was a little older too, but
Yeah.
I think I just became more courageous because
Mm.
I had to then adult a little faster because
Mm.
now I had to think about this other person in my life, right?
Yes. Yes.
Easier.
Yes, you got that push and the purpose. And I love you took my next questions, which is what I think is great. But and I do believe that even some of these barriers just recently discussed, it is can cause or add to our mental health. And I know that's something that you wanted to, touch on. Do you believe, as we move into the next one, I want to talk to you about the balancing of the education system and being a first generation and also parenting. Talk to us about how this played a role in your overall mental health.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. And if it's okay, I want to quickly share what mental health is because I think a lot of the times people confuse, right? People confuse the words mental health, mental illness, and they use them interchangeably.
Correct.
And there is a behavioral health umbrella, right? A mental health umbrella. But
Yes.
something we have to remember is that we all have mental health because we all have a brain, right? Just like we all have physical health because we all have a body, just like we have dental health because we all have teeth. And so,
Yes.
right, our brain, our mental health is going to be impacted by everything and anything.
Yes.
And so when I became a student, so obviously being a student, there's just the stressors of life, right? Boyfriends and girlfriends and friends and all of these challenges that are going to affect how we feel, how we think. But when I became a student parent, I think the stress increased because now I'm not only having to think about my siblings, right, my family, but I'm
Yeah.
having to also think about this new baby that's going to come into the world and how am I going to pay for diapers, right? How am I going to pay for their clothes and who's going to watch my kid? When am I going to sleep and when am I going to study? And
Mm.
so, right, these real life stressors are
Right.
naturally going to impact how we feel and how we behave, right? So
Correct.
because again, right, our mental health is how we feel, how we think, how we
Right.
respond to things in our lives, how we're coping. And unfortunately, again, due to our experiences, our family styles, we're not really discussing these stressors, right? Of being a student, one, right?
Yeah.
And then being a parent and how that's going to impact how you feel, how you think, and how you act.
Correct. Okay. I'm sorry. I got to ask since you brought it up. Uh, so I love the fact that you're touching on mental health, right? And that is a balance. And I feel, and I can only talk about me and my background, right? We, in my background, we were under the impression that it doesn't matter how you feel. Doesn't matter how you feel, don't matter what you think, right? You're supposed to go with the flow. And at times, more often, we bring this way of feeling, this mindset is what you're saying, into our adult lives. And we kind of fall into sometimes a habitual pattern that may be really bad for us, or could be good for us, or it could just be a mess, right? And that's kind of where we have it. Correct me if I'm wrong, that breakdown in mental health, right? It's because we ignore it or we don't give time to support it. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that? Do you mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that our brain is so strong, right? And as humans, we're so resilient. But I think that as Californians, right? And again, and maybe as minorities and as women, we have been taught our whole lives to fake it till we make it, right? To not air out our dirty laundry. I mean, all these things. And I think what happens is because we're so resilient, we ignore the mild flags, right? The moderate flags, and then finally, right, the severe flags come out. And so, right, we always hear the saying, "The straw that broke the camel's back," but it's obviously there was something else that was happening, I just think that we're really good at ignoring. And so, what's important when we're taking care of our mental health, as student parents, right, as parents, is that we want to model that behavior of self-care, of wellness, of honoring our brain health just like anything else, our physical health and our dental health. And so it's really recognizing, physically, what is my body telling me? Because I think it's right. And again, not to speak for all individuals that identify as minorities, but for most, I would say for most minorities, we're
Yeah.
really good at taking care of our physical health because we've been taught our whole lives to pay attention to it,
Correct.
right?
I
Right,
agree.
pay
Yeah.
attention, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so for most of us, we know the remedies to take care of our physical health, right?
Mhm.
As for most of us, we had the opportunity to have dental health, right?
Yes.
It might not have been the best dental health, but
Correct.
it may not the best dental insurance, but we
Right.
had the opportunity to go to the dentist. So we
Right.
know, right, how to pay attention to that and speak about it.
Yeah.
So I always tell everyone, if we want to avoid those breakdowns from happening,
Mm.
we want to pay attention to physical, what's going on, right? Is my heart beating fast, right? Is my stomach twisting and turning,
Yeah.
right? Am I sweating? Is my back tensing? Am I tensing my jaw, right? All these signals that our body's going to send
Mm.
us, and taking that moment to really reflect on that. That's the easy part for most of us, right? Because
Right.
we've been paying attention.
Right.
Then then I go to think about the thoughts, right? The cognitive. What
Right.
kind of thoughts are you having? Is it that I'm beating myself up? I'm no good. I'm a terrible parent, right? I'm a loser. I'll never accomplish this, right? Those thoughts. So that's one part. The other thing is also the emotions, which most of us are very uncomfortable with the emotions because we have put our emotions in categories of good and bad,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And so as humans, we wanna feel all those good things, and I
Yeah.
do too, but those other emotions, those feelings that we've labeled as bad, like the sadness, the anger, the irritability, those
Yeah.
are all welcome as well. They're there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up very spiritual and very conservative, so I'm like, I truly believe, like, God gave us those emotions for a reason. And
Reason.
so, right,
Yeah. Yes.
if they weren't meant to be, they wouldn't be there. And so
Correct.
it's really recognizing that it's like, what are these thoughts trying to say to me? What are these emotions trying to say to me? What is my physical body trying to say to me? And the
Right.
other thing is the behavior part of it. So if we want to avoid breakdowns from happening, we got to pay attention to our behaviors. So
Mm.
am I overeating? Am I undereating? Am I
Mm.
oversleeping? Am I undersleeping? Right? Am I biting my fingernails?
Yeah.
So the more we pay attention to those things, right? Those are again the signals that our mental health is being compromised. And for good reasons. And I always remind everyone, for good reasons. As a student parent, we're balancing, right, a, various roles. And so we want to honor those stressors, honor those past
Mm.
traumas. And the more that you honor it and you pay attention to what your body and your brain and your soul is saying to you, it will ultimately help to not lead to those mental health breakdowns.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. Dr. Yes. You are so right. Because, oh man, and I love the way you put it. And gosh, I'm gonna have to ask you to give us an outline. Because one, I want to just point out a couple things that spoke to me. You said honor those feelings. They are not to be ignored or swept underneath the rug. For many years, I can tell you I swept mine under the rug. And and when you're trying to achieve such a high goal, or a goal like you spoke about before, first being first generation, to graduate, to go to school, then now you're a parent, and when you acknowledge your stressors, you have a better chance of getting it done and not having that meltdown. And can I just give and I love that you said that, because I want to give a little bit of credit to the meltdowns too. Um, the meltdowns in mental health. And it's easy when you recognize it the first time, because we can do something about it. So I like that you said that, as far as honoring those moments in our lives. So thank you for saying that. I can go deeper, but I don't want to take up too much time. I'm gonna have to have you on again to talk about this. Okay, so you talked to us about the balancing act and how you manage to balance your overall mental health and responsibilities. So I just want to just ask you, I want to dive real quick before I let you go. I want to talk to you about your career and your success. and moving into the field that you chose to move in. I'm interested in wanting to know a little bit more about that. How did you choose that field?
At first I thought it was all fun and games, right? Like I saw these psychologists, all these social workers. I'm like, wow,
Right,
like I want that title. That looks like prestige. That looks
right.
awesome, right? So it was a lot of that. But then when I started realizing, as I started to understand really what struggle is, I had my own struggles, right? For most of us, we're wounded warriors, right? We're all wounded warriors. We become
Yes,
therapists, we become helpers, we become, right, these people in the community advocating because we've experienced it ourselves.
yes.
And so I had my own struggle with depression, with anxiety. And because of that, I really wanted to be able to help other individuals experiencing the same thing.
Mm.
Actually, originally, I wanted to be a therapist for veterans. And that's the reason why is my brother actually was in the military and he was deployed to Iraq really early on in his he was 18 years old, right? Being
Oh,
deployed
wow.
to Iraq war. And so unfortunately, and we're best friends. And when he came back, he was a completely different person, right? Struggling with PTSD, struggling with a lot. It makes me to this day,
Yeah.
saddened by it. And so I'm like, okay, this is a population I want to work with. But then what
Mhm.
I realized as I continued right my educational journey,
Right.
I started training as a therapist at the local community college. And
Huh.
what I realized, like, these are my people. These are my people that that's me, right? I'm like, I was you. And
Yeah,
what I noticed is that so many students were dropping out of school, right? They were stopping, they were self sabotaging, they
yeah.
were, having all these challenges because of the things that as humans we all struggle with, right?
Right.
Negative self-talk, self-sabotage, poor
Yeah.
difficulty with boundaries, not taking care of our mental health, not knowing what mental health is, not knowing how to take care of it. Finally, what I found my passion was with student parent population is as I started my doctorate program, we had to find um, identify a social work problem, and one of the problems was closing the health gap. And what I realized is that there's a huge health gap with supporting student parents at the community college level. and
Oh,
and so with that, right, we're not, yes, you have access to school, yes, you have access to resources, but what we're really not addressing is, are we providing a holistic type of whole student parent support, right? Where we're
mm.
able to help you with not only your mental health, but with case management, with student parent support services, with a community, right?
Yeah,
Because there are something I want to mention is that in order to have this optimal mental health, it's a lifelong process. But
yeah,
there's things that we can do to have that, and one is protective factors, right? Protective factors are the shields we create against the bad things that we're all going to experience in our lives.
yeah,
And so it made me go into this very specific population because there's so many student parents, like you said, that stop going to school because
yeah.
they feel like they don't have that support or they can't balance it. But
Right.
truly, they can have it all, right? You
Yeah,
could be that parent, you could be that family member, you can go to work, you can go to school. You just got to learn how to take care of your mental health with that safe community support. And that's kind of has been my career focus goal, is really getting our student parents to empower each other to be able to have
mm,
cheerleaders in their lives, to have that hope, like I mentioned in the beginning, right? Because
right.
hope is everything. Because the
Yeah,
stress is going to be there. It's going to be there always.
yes. Yes. Do you find that people that they struggle with asking for help? Is it easier
Yes.
just to bow out quietly and say, you know what, no expectations on me, so I can just disappear?
Absolutely. Yeah, because vulnerability, right? To ask for help,
Right.
that's straight, that's courage, that's
Yeah.
vulnerability. And
Mm.
again, right? Most of us as humans, as individuals from, I'm going to say minority, right, backgrounds, we're
Right.
taught to do it ourselves. And if we can't do it ourselves, then something's wrong with us. But the reality is that, again, like I mentioned, if we were meant to do things on our own, there would only be one person in this whole universe,
Yeah.
and,
Facts.
and we're not.
Wow. Okay, Dr. Lamb, this is really good. This is really good. You are speaking to us on so many different levels. You're speaking to the ones who may want to go back to school, but say, you know what? Why, or can I? Do I have the support to do so? And also the ones who may be struggling, should I go to school because I'm fresh out of high school and I have all these responsibility stacked against me. You're right. I see the need for it. I see the need to, goodness gracious, we got to just get, push this out. I could, man, I know so many women, and women, if you're listening right now, this is for all of us. This is for all of us. So thank you so much for coming and shedding some light on this topic and on this subject. And I want to ask you before we wrap up and I let you go, I want to ask you so many more questions, but I will be going so far off topic and we don't have time. We're gonna have you on again. I want to give ask you to give some ladies some advice, because it's a women's podcast, and men, if you're listening to, jump on it and find where you fit in. This can definitely help you as well. But give some ladies who are listening, give them some advice on how to move forward if this topic resonates with you.
I would say that what you need to do is find the college that provides the most support, right? So if you're a student parent, I would probably say, what does my college offer me? What can my college do for me? And before starting that college journey, remind yourself that it's going to be stressful, right? School is stressful, but you also don't have to take the same educational journey as other people. So I think there's a lot of pressure, right, as human as students, that we all have to take the full units, that we all have to be full-time students. And so I think you got to think about what's best for you. But my advice to all students is one class a semester is better than no classes at all, because eventually you'll get to your goal. And at the end of the day, no one cares what you got on your transcripts, right? No one cares how long it took you to get to that goal. What matters is you got to that goal. And so I share with all my students, like, look at my transcripts. There's C's, there's some B's, there's maybe one or two A's. And now that I'm my doctorate, do you think anyone cares what my transcripts were? What
Right.
matters is that I'm utilizing this knowledge to be
Mm,
able to help my family, to help my community, and to empower other people to say, more than capable. Just
yeah.
find your support and also find your balance. What works best for you as a human?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Dr. Lynette, you are absolutely right. That is so good because we try to do it all at once. We try to do it all at once, and then we put that pressure on ourselves that those that past trauma starts coming in, that we're not good enough. You can't do it and it's gonna take forever. But you said a lot. You shed a lot of light, and you brought it to a point where we can all see ourselves. I can tell you, just, for me, listening, I could see myself in so many different areas and so many different topics and points that you spoke about. And I love the fact that you broke down what the mental health really looks like, what our overall mental health really looks like, and our wellness. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to have you back again for that. Thank you so much for coming and pouring on at this well, Dr. Lynette. I appreciate you for dropping some knowledge for us all to take along with us. Do you mind just sharing the information on where we can find you? And I'll also share it in the description as well.
Sure. So right now I'm focusing more on social media. And so what my social media is really focusing on is actually sharing other student parent empowerment stories.
Ah,
Because I think as a community, again, we kind of feel isolated, and it's very empowering to find other, students that are completing their education. And so you can find me actually on social media, student parents empowering parents. And you'll just again see some of the things that I have shared, what can help student parents, really focusing on other student parents and the empowerment, encouraging words they're sharing with other parents, just to continue that again, and whatever that means, right? If that's one
right.
class a semester, if that's, you're going to take a full load, but that you don't give up on your passions.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. I will put that in the description below. Ladies, if you were blessed by this episode and you're blessed by some of the nuggets that Dr. Lynette shared with us today, we ask that you follow Dr. Lynette online. I will leave her information in the description below. And if you know someone who can benefit from this, we ask that you share it with them. We ask that you send the information their way. If they need a support group, if they just need a pointer, follow Dr. Lynette. She has some good resources for you to, stay in the fight. You have a dream, you have a passion. Don't give up on it. It's yours, and you're going to do it. So Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Woman Witness Podcast, The Stories at the Well. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Thank you, Dr. Lynnette, for joining me today. Until next time,